Hello, everybody that stayed. We're the GIS OSM mapping team for Red Bank High School of Chattanooga, Tennessee. And what we did for our past year was map with HOT and a team in Ireland and Colombia to map for Ebola and Lesotho. And so basically, as everyone knows by now, that Ebola broke out in Africa and caused great devastation for a lot of people, and then later came here to America through one person, and several other people are still looking. I was going to show you guys a Prezi, but we're having some technical issues with loading that up. So, but basically all I did was make a Prezi to show students at our school what Ebola was and talk about some of the doctors that are there who are helping the issue. What we used to map was OpenStreetMap, like we did with San Salvador and St. Thomas. And basically it is a free website that you can easily go into, log in, and map anywhere in the world because all the data is free. And you're also able to work with many other people, which is very hard.
Okay, for the few, the brave, we want you to be hotties. My kids laugh and giggle every time I say that. Like, I'm a hottie, and I don't get good response at high school. But a hot person is somebody who maps humanitarian outreach, and the need is quite great. Ebola came along the line, and it was amazing. 10,000 jumped on to help with the Ebola crisis. HOT stands for Open Humanitarian Outreach Team. We're actually called the Ice Baby Team. I did not give us this name. I don't like this name. Our partner in crime who runs a GIS business, he gave it to us, and it has stuck like glue, and we can't get rid of it. We do our work for HOT, but one of the things you should realize with Ebola is immediately as soon as it went to HOT and it got validated, it went straight to the World Health Organization. It went to their smartphones. It was less than 8 hours, sometimes 4 hours translation time. American Red Cross was using it. The United Nations used this. If you think OSM is not big, Hewlett-Packard donated $5 billion during the Ebola crisis just for imagery. One of our board members has now had to go off the board, and he's actually talking to President Obama as one of his advisors on this. They're now teaching this in 3 universities as curriculum, and there are 10,000 hotties, and I'm on a mission in Chattanooga, Tennessee to make a lot more than that.
Okay, so in case you weren't here last time, this is how you get to the OSM Task Manager. You just do a simple Google search for OSM Task Manager, and then you log in and you choose your task. When you choose your task, you want to look for what you're actually going to be mapping, and then also the percentage that is completed so far, because the less percentage is always better than that. And there are 3 types of tiles. You're going to have to choose a tile after that you will lock, and so no one else can edit it. There's a gray tile. That means it's not completed yet. And the yellow tile, that means that it probably is completed yet, but it needs validation. And then there's a green tile that means it is completed and validated. There were 4 major problems with mapping in OSM. The first one was bad imagery. There's very difficult imagery to interpret sometimes. And second, there's buffering, because there's so many people in our class actually trying to map at the same time. Third thing was houses or areas overlapping each other and having to go back and fix that. And last, one of the biggest ones, was the actual time crunch, because there just wasn't enough time, nearly enough time, to finish everything we needed to do in a single class period.
Now, you've already heard that the WHO, the World Health Organization, was using these maps to vector for Ebola, which means they see the buildings that they're in, they put a point on that says how many people are in there, and they use that to determine the spread. They've also put down the riverways, which people in Africa don't have a highway system. So the rivers are kind of their highway. They get in a boat and they go up and down that as opposed to an asphalt thing. But you didn't know that the World Health Organization partnered with a pharmaceuticals place in Kentucky to try and manufacture a cure for it.
And that cure would be tobacco leaves. And these tobacco leaves are grown in greenhouses specifically because they want the leaves to get as big as they can. And what these leaves produce are antibodies on the outside of them, and they have to literally produce rows and rows of these tobacco leaves, and it takes a 6-week period, so that way they can get the biggest and the most antibodies out of these tobacco leaves that are inside like a vacuum sealed type container that will kind of pump those out. Issues with that is getting approved by the FDA and also government funding. They need government funding, but the thing is the government, well, they're kind of telling them, we need more testing and we need more results for that to happen.
What he didn't tell you is it would, one of those fields would only produce 3 fields. So that was a big issue. What do we need to do? Who and ask OSM, this is what we need. We need the houses because we need to figure out who's actually got the disease and mark those homes. We need roadways, we need river systems. And so that's what we focused on. If that's what they needed, that's what we did. The WHO said this helped them in vectoring, and so that's what happened with us. And our thing was how to get the data done as quickly and correctly as possible so it could actually be downloaded to smartphones for the people who are working literally on the ground.
Now you can see this is a small collage of some shots from a CNN telecast and 2 others from other places that they went to Africa and saw this crisis, and they just saw these people just completely in anguish and being destroyed by this disease, because Ebola isn't just something that kills one person here and there. It's killed 10,000 people to date of last week. And just seeing this happen to these people, tearing apart these families and these villages, if one person in a household gets this disease and it isn't treated and that person is removed immediately, it is completely likely that the entire household will be killed by the same thing because they're trying to take care of that person. And just seeing this and knowing that if we can spend 20 minutes on a smartphone, OSM works on a smartphone, if you can spend 20 minutes doing that here and there, you can help these people, and seeing that if they were in our position and we were in theirs, we'd want them to help us. If we had this disease and they had the technology, we'd want them to give it to us. So why would we not do anything that we could to help them?
One thing he didn't mention, if you notice at the top there was a number that said 10,000. That's how many people have died as of 2 weeks ago in those countries.
We went into Liberia and mapped in Monrovia, which is a city in Liberia, and basically we went there because we found out that they were throwing their bodies into the river system, which earlier in the presentation we learned that that's their highway system. That's what they use for water. That's what they use to travel. So you can tell. River system. That just will spread the disease much faster. They were also burying the bodies after the death. So then we had to go in and re-dig those bodies back up in order to find out which areas, where the Ebola was coming out of. And here you can see where we went in and we mapped houses and things like that, neighborhoods and roads, so that we can kind of give a distinction of where that is going on.
I've got a picture of Dr. Mueller. Surprisingly enough, I talked to him, I Skyped with him. He came in from the University of Pennsylvania and talked to HOT and said, how would I get a college group to do this? I teach GIS, I want them to teach humanitarian mapping. And surprisingly, they sent him to a high school teacher. And I was kind of shocked here. I get a call and an email, will you please talk to me about how to make this applicable for a high school, for a college setting, because people at HOT are working as individuals in cubicles or at home, and they don't manage large groups of people. And I said, well, this is how I do it. And I said, first thing, I grid off everything. Everybody has a certain grid. I said, it doesn't matter how much time it takes them to get it, they've got to get it done. I spot check. I said, there are 3 editors. The ID editor will tell the kids how many things they've done. It's the easiest. If you've actually got GIS experience, I'd say go to Hot Labs or JOSM. And as a JOSM, as a administrator, I can go in and see exactly what they're doing. And there's no hidden stuff going on. So he was so excited about what was going on. He said, the next time Red Bank goes hot, you call us. So he has already said that he would be a hand with us at Red Bank High School at the University of Pennsylvania, that the next Mapathon, his team is with us. So instead of having 90 strong, I will have 2 big spikes coming out from this country doing effective work for HOT.
This here is just kind of the globe right here. This kind of shows you how far apart you can be yet how close you can come together to start a project like Lesotho when we have mapped it. And I just would like to point out that after mapping Lesotho, it is now their national map. Preparation for mapping Lesotho, we have 1 week's time, which is usually how we have a lot of projects. We usually have a short amount of time. So, you know, it gets stressful sometimes. But we pulled together 90 of our students in a 24-hour period. And in this next slide, or my bad, I thought that was the charts. All right, well, we pulled together 90 students in a 24-hour period and
Mapped a nation.
mapped the nation.
Yeah.
This here is Big C. Big C helped tremendously in mapping Lesotho. And here at the bottom picture, you can see he's with a group of cartographers and 2 men from Lesotho's government that also played a big reason on why we were doing this project. Now this is the chart I was trying to show you. You can see the day that we hopped online, right here. You can see the number of people and the number of houses that were completed in that 24-hour period.
So 90 strong, Red Bank made a big difference.
Okay. So this is basically a small city in Kingdom of Lesotho. And right now, as we are talking, the Big C is actually mapping here right now because I checked it out earlier, like actually just yesterday, and there's more houses being mapped. And I think it's pretty cool that even as we're presenting, they're still mapping for us. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say about this slide. But yeah, we basically helped out map some residential areas to point out where they were, and we helped map the roads and some of the houses and waterways if we could tell that it was a water.
Outcomes. After we were done mapping with Ireland and Colombia, Red Bank as a total ended up having 90,234 edits with around 3 houses per edit, and we ended up making a big difference towards a poverty and disease area.
Never blogged in my life. Don't know if we'll ever do it again. We made a blog, actually, 2 of the students and I wrote the blog and put it on, so if you ever go to Map Lesotho, you'll see what we did. You'll see all the work we did and what has came to be. I became the Twitter queen of Map Lesotho. The kids are still begging for me to tell them where they can actually read what went on, and I won't tell. Because I was talking to people in Lesotho, in Ireland, in Colombia, all in this 24-hour period. Just the logistics alone, it was the biggest, and I'll use a teacher word, project-based learning I'd ever done. And if I hadn't had the 13 heroes that you've got 5 of them here, I would have never been able to do what we did.
This is the Ireland classroom that helped map with us on our Hackathon day. These are the classes that had maps in our school, about astronomy, scientific research, geology, and of course GIS.
Again, we actually do this if you want and are interested in OSM. We actually have handouts to hand out at the end of this to tell you how to take what you know in GIS and take and learn OSM and convert it into a format that's easy for you to print or to manipulate data. And so this came from Randy Hale. He has been our mentor on this. So this kind of gives you a step-by-step how to do it, so it would be pretty easy for anybody in GIS to go convert. Again, we ask why. I couldn't turn away from Ebola. I couldn't be a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I couldn't do those things, but I couldn't also sit there and watch HOT screaming, we need help, and not do something. I can teach kids to map. I can teach kids to care. They saw one video and the whole room became quiet and there was not another thing. Everybody worked. Everybody. So that's what we want to do. We want to make a difference in our students' lives and the people that we touch. Questions?
Clearly, we have plenty of time for questions.